Good afternoon. I'm Executive Chef Deidre Antes at East Meets West Catering. And today I'm going to show you an hors d'oeuvre. It is a seared duck breast on a wild rice pancake with a cherry compote. And I'm going to start by showing you how to score and sear the duck breast. This is about a 8 to 10 ounce duck breast. You can get at your local grocery store, probably a Whole Foods. And one duck breast will probably make at least 25 hors d'oeuvres. It also would make probably one portion if you were going to use it as an entree. All right, I'm going to start by showing you how to score the skin. And what you want to do is with a very sharp knife, just make very light cuts across the top of the duck breast. You don't want to go too deep because then you'll start to cook the meat at the time when you're really to just be rendering the fat from the skin. So I'm going to turn it and go the other way. And you can see just very small little squares. The rendering process takes a little time. Just be patient with it. You don't want to, and I'll show you that, but you don't want to use a real high heat when you do that. You just want to slowly kind of melt the fat from the skin. I'm going to rub a little salt. This is kosher salt and some black pepper into the skin, and just a little onto the other side. And then I have some garam masala, which is a nice spice similar to curry in that it's made up of lots of different spices. It's ginger, clove, cardamom, pepper. I'm going to rub that right into the skin. And now your duck breast is ready to go into a saute pan. You want to have that saute pan on, like I said, medium heat. You don't want the skin to render too quickly. So I'm going to take this over to the stove and put that into the pan. So I've just put a very small amount of oil in the pan so it doesn't stick. And go ahead and lay the duck in there. You can hear that that's not a real hot pan. Just a little sizzle. And I'm actually going to turn that fire down even a little bit more. I'm just going to leave it there. I mean, keep your eye on it, but you shouldn't have to do too much. You're going to notice that in a few minutes there'll be a lot of fat collected in the pan, which I'm going to pour off, and then we'll have a nice, tight, crispy skin that will add to the taste of the dish. All right. Okay, so our duck is still searing on the stove, and we're going to make these mini wild rice pancakes. I have a Robot-Coupe. You could use a Cuisinart at home. What we're going to do is put the pre-cooked white rice into the bowl and the pre-cooked wild rice. I'm going to blend that. You want to still see some grains of rice, but you need to break it down enough so that the rice kind of becomes the glue, so that you have a nice pancake effect. I'm going to add the garlic and onion that I sauteed earlier in some olive oil. And a little bit of chopped herbs. In this case, I'm using sage, but feel free to experiment with herbs that you like. Could be tarragon, thyme, or a combination of both. And you'll find that your rice might be a little dry. I like to overcook the white rice slightly. It makes it a little stickier, and it helps to make the pancakes hold together. I have a little bit of vegetable stock here, which I'm going to add just enough until I start to see the rice coming together. All of these grains work well, especially with the duck, because they have a nice woodsy, nutty kind of taste. So I'm just going to give this a taste and see whether we need a little salt and pepper. And we do. This is something you can make with leftover rice. If you've made a pilaf the night before, you don't have to stay true to this recipe. You can make yourself some wild rice or bulgur and then make the recipe out of some leftovers, which is a beautiful thing. All right. So you can still see some grains. It's not entirely pulsed, but it starts to hold together because of the natural starches. So you do not need to add flour or egg. You can, but it's not necessary. I'm going to form some cakes. This particular recipe can be used for large cakes, which would be a nice side dish if you were going to have duck as an entree. I'm using a very small scoop to make these cakes, and we're going to form them. This is something you could make and form and put them into the fridge for a while so that they hold their shape, and then pull them out later and sear them. We're going to sear them right away. So I'm going to take a look at this duck. You can see that it's really rendered quite a bit of its fat. It's been a good 10 or 12 minutes. It's getting a nice brown color. I'm going to let it go just a little longer before we turn it over and sear the flesh side. I'm going to turn it up just a bit. And I have a pan ready with a little bit of olive oil to sear off the rice cakes. You want to have a medium heat, just waiting for that to get a little hotter. And I'm going to add just a little more oil. These are a nice item for people who are on a vegan diet. There's no egg. They are bound just by the rice itself. So just kind of move them around a little bit. If you're making this mix for the first time, it's always good to do a demo on your first cake. You'll know quickly whether you've mixed it long enough just by how well the mixture holds together. There we are. It's nice golden brown. I'll start to turn them over. Now I'm going to turn the duck over as well. You can see it's about 3/4 of a cup of fat just from that single duck breast. At this point with the duck, you can put this remove some of the grease and finish it in the oven. Because I have the space, go ahead and do it right here on the flat top. I'm going to cook the duck to about medium rare. Should be nice and pink in the middle. If you're going to be using it for an hors d'oeuvre, it'll be heated one more time when you're serving it, so you don't want to overcook it. So I've just taken these rice cakes out of the, I put them in the oven for a few minutes just to get them nice and crisp. Probably, I don't know, 5 to 8 minutes at a 350 oven. And our duck breast has had a chance to rest so that when we cut it, we're not losing a lot of those beautiful juices. And we're going to show you how to go about cutting this. It's important to cut it nice and thin, almost ribbon-like, so when you're working with a small hors d'oeuvre, such as these rice cakes, you have enough surface area to put the piece of duck, and you're not having your guests sort of have to, you know, wear their hors d'oeuvre. So we're going to start on a corner, and with a sharp knife, just do a really thin shaving, and you can hear that, well, maybe you can't, but it's a nice crispy skin, and you're getting a lot of the flavor right there in the fat. So I know some people don't like to eat a lot of fat. This is worth trying, even just a little bit. This is a sour cherry confit or chutney that we made, and the recipe will be on the website for you to look at. I'm not going to go through the process of how we made it today, but this is one thing that works very well in this hors d'oeuvre. You can also use an apple chutney or a fig jam that you can actually buy. There are a lot of nice prepared items out there that you can use as a substitute for this. So I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit of the chutney down on the cake. And then a nice thin piece of the duck. And you can garnish with a lot of different things. We have some shaved scallion here. You can also use a little piece of cilantro as a garnish. So don't get, you know, locked into thinking you've got to drive all over town for this little guy, which is called bull's blood. You probably won't find it in a grocery store. This is a special microgreen that we've chosen because I just thought it really worked well with the color of the cherries. Just a little piece on top to finish. And that's a manageable hors d'oeuvre. If you heat up your cakes and have your duck sliced and ready, you can make these in a very short period of time. The heat from the cakes will kind of warm through the chutney. The duck does not have to be heated again, especially if you've made it the same day. If you make this in advance, you can warm it up in a slow and low oven, and I'd recommend not flipping it onto the flesh side until the day of, so that you don't overcook the duck. You want it to have a nice pink color.